The entire cryptocurrency market is seeing largely sluggish, dull price movement today, but that trend won't last for long. No, 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 no. In fact, I'm going to offer you a ton of reasons to be incredibly optimistic that yes, the euphoric blow off top, the finest part of the cycle we've all been waiting for, is on the horizon, according to numerous credible chart experts, including some of the most well-known in the entire cryptocurrency sector. And for XRP holders, that might entail some genuinely amazing and transformative things. Actually, Hunt, according to one analyst I'll mention in this video, $20 is still the major price goal for this market cycle. Since XRP is currently trading around $2.97, it has been fluctuating above and below $3 for the past few days. As of right now, as I'm recording this, Bitcoin is at $111,464, and nothing has changed. However, as I mentioned at the beginning, we won't remain here indefinitely, and definitely not for very long. We won't be stuck in this if the majority of analysts are right. Although things like these can seem to go on forever at times, they will eventually come to an end. Additionally, when the market cycle draws to a close, you usually see rapid price movement. As a result, some of the most reputable and well-known figures in the cryptocurrency industry, as well as some of the most prosperous investors, many of whom operate investment businesses in the industry, all understand that if history repeats itself, as it most likely will, then chaos is on the horizon. Therefore, Dan Tapiro's post is available. He founded 50T Funds and serves as its CEO. Investments in mid to late stage cryptocurrency companies are made by this company. Although they don't consider themselves venture capitalists, they only make investments in the cryptocurrency industry. He shared this post, which covers the whole crypto asset class, aside from Bitcoin and Ethereum, because he knows what's coming. This chart is an example of it. It's everything else. He stated that the following was not significantly higher than the 2018 peak and was not altered from the 2021 peak. Thus, you can see what he's discussing. Additionally, it just so happens that several analysts have emphasized essentially the same chart during the past week. And you can see that over the past few years, this thing has been trading in a more constrained range, which is what you would hope and anticipate if you want an alternative season. When something ultimately breaks, it does so with more force the longer it consolidates. And this is where you can see what he's talking about. We're now moving my mouse. That's where we are right now for those of you on the screen. This is the high for 2021. Isn't it not that different? I also understand what he's trying to say. This is the 2018 high. Indeed, it is higher, but not unreasonably so. He then notes that there are numerous tailwinds at this time. He said, 7 years ago, there were no stables, no DeFi, no yield, no Solana, no NFTs, no DEXs, no real-world assets, no AI, no prediction market, etc., etc. The shape of his jib is right. It's not totally accurate. Decentralized exchanges, of course, have been around for more than 10 years. In actuality, the XRP ledger boasts the first integrated decentralized exchange in history. He mentioned real-world assets, but it's possible that he was thinking, okay, but these things weren't really popular and so would have only marginally best impacted the price. Alright, so yes, things were tokenized 7 years ago. Actually, just 10 years ago, gold was tokenized on the XRP ledger. That's not to say there weren't any. My hunch is that he is talking more about the fact that those narratives weren't widely accepted at the time. He is therefore arguing that there is more justification for price increases here. In addition, the United States, which has the world's largest capital market, has officially embraced cryptocurrency for the first time. Yes, that is also a significant issue. He goes on to suggest that an alt season is coming and that the rise of the digital asset economy is not priced in. And it's difficult to dispute that. Thus, every type of chart analyst will share. They have been lately. As I mentioned, a lot of chart analysts have posted essentially the same graphic above in the past week, which shows guys with altcoins coiled up and headed here. Additionally, there are other fundamental real-world reasons to think that the best is still to come. Additionally, the timing is perfect in this case. Now, I came across this article from Raoul Pal, and it's from an analyst, I don't know, K. Dean. He stated, "We are off the M2 money supply trend line short term." According to Raoul Pal, the price of Bitcoin and, by extension, the whole class of cryptocurrency assets moves in lockstep with worldwide M2 nearly 90% of the time. About 90% of the time, Bitcoin moves in the same direction as the global M2. Look where I'm moving my mouse right here. You could now zoom in on any small piece and say, wow, there's no correlation here. That's where you could say it. You could move over here and say, wow, there's no correlation. Then you could look over here and say, wow, there's no correlation. You could say that there is no correlation for any short period of time, but if you zoom out and if you have at least one human eyeball attached to a brain, you can see that, of course, there is correlation here if you zoom out over a longer period of time. It's all right when K. Dean writes, we're off of this short term. However, that is always the case. Zoom in on practically any tiny, extremely brief time span here, as I mentioned. You might also argue that point. I'm merely stating that it is irrelevant. This is also typical. This is not an indication of a decoupling from global M2. Not at all. Raoul Pal then addressed this, and it was he who popularized this specific indicator in the cryptocurrency space because for more than 10 years, the correlation has been constantly flawless. This place has a lot of power. Naturally, Raoul Pal is also the founder and CEO of Real Vision and global macro investor. He was once an executive at Goldman Sachs, and incidentally, he owns XRP. Here's the original version. That's what's currently on your screen, he continued. Furthermore, there is a 12-week lag in Bitcoin, which is why these do not correspond chronologically. That's the sole explanation. We've had really large gaps the other way around in the past as well, he adds. Here's the original version updated. We always said it wouldn't continue to exactly mirror, but contextually, it should be correct. And in the end, Bitcoin came up to M2 and resolved the issue. Again, this does not imply that anything is present. In actuality, this is quite typical, and there are countless examples of this dating back more than a decade. To be clear, this did not imply that the association vanished. There's this notion of longer cycles, even if it doesn't make any sense, that it would be gone. I'm not suggesting that I agree with this either. Well, I'm not sure who said it, but there's a potential that they're right. But Raoul Pal isn't exactly a fly-by-night kind of person, you know. He has 1.2 million followers on X for a reason. He is highly brilliant, well-respected, and has worked in traditional banking for his entire career until eventually gravitating toward cryptocurrency. In fact, he believes that there is a plausible possibility that this cycle will continue until almost halfway through 2026. Additionally, he is among the few analysts I follow who are suggesting that this is a major issue. That is not the opinion of the majority of analysts I follow. As a result, minority viewpoints might occasionally be right and occasionally incorrect. If he is, I won't be shocked that he is saying it since, at the very least, it is too far outside the purview of this video to discuss in detail. He's not the only one who believes that things could be taken a little longer, even if I have previously brought attention to his viewpoint on it. And if that's the case, XRP might experience a significant increase over the course of the following year. Again, I'm not implying that I agree with this. Here I'm just providing a few, some, and a couple of different viewpoints from respected analysts. TechDev appears to agree with this as well. Additionally, he has stated on several occasions that he believes this issue may continue into the following year. It's a minority opinion once more. Good for the minority if their opinion turns out to be true. They deserve all the credit they deserve. However, according to the majority of analysts I follow, we are actually nearing the end of the cycle phase and will soon see that exuberant blow-off peak. However, they're not merely saying things because, well, why not? Here, they have statistics to support their opinions. This IT developer, who has 546,000 XBerry followers, is a data-driven person, and he's demonstrating business cycles and Bitcoin here. That white line at the top, is the price of Bitcoin going back basically to the beginning, roughly 15 years ago. And, well, business cycles are at the bottom. Business cycles, the information that is displayed on your computer right now, which is represented by the red and green bars at the bottom of the screen, is derived from real data on the world economy. Production and trade credits, for example, are combined into a single signal that indicates whether the economy is growing or declining. And Bitcoin cycles have nearly exactly matched this signal. The red and green are essentially the result of a macro signal that alternates between expansion and contraction. Additionally, it's at the top when Bitcoin's price is at its highest. You can notice it if you're looking at the screen. And yeah, I'm speculating as to why he chose the color red for this chart, which is simply because he's red, as it's overheating. However, as I mentioned earlier, it's really just a macro signal that will alternate between contraction and expansion. Well, but every bear market cycle ends when the bars turn green, and ramps continue as long as the bars remain red, and the tops, hit the red peak. This time, the ramp will also be longer because the green period has been longer. That's the only difference. The term ramp simply refers to the extent to which it shifts momentum and starts trending in the opposite direction. But here's the interesting part, Therefore, it hasn't even begun yet, that potent red growth phase that propels Bitcoin's parabolic runs. Examine the locations of the Bitcoin price peaks in each of the preceding cycles. That's when the red bars on your business cycle peaked. That is when it has always occurred throughout history. Not even a single red bar has appeared yet. What relevance does this have for XRP then? That's because Bitcoin always drags the entire market along with it when it begins its ramp phase. All coins, including XRP, have historically had their most significant explosive move around that time. Since the entire asset class moves in unison, if this cycle is only now aligning for Bitcoin, it may indicate that everything is ready for XRP to break out alongside it. That is precisely what he is emphasizing here, so it would not be shocking. He asked, "What's actually different this time?" I won't read the entire message because he makes it that way, but he's asking, so what is actually different? Well, that's what I recently said. Green, the area where I move my mouse, has been longer, you know. In terms of time, it is indeed lengthier. Consequently, the ramp, if you choose to refer to it as such, has been lengthier. That's all. Red hasn't even begun, he claims. Will you be here when it happens? It doesn't seem like most will be. Another researcher is utilizing statistics to conclude that this cycle is not peaking this year, but rather will peak next year, possibly in the middle of 2026. I'm just sharing this with you because, as far as I can tell, it's a minority opinion, but they aren't just random internet idiots saying dumb things. These are, clever, well-informed people with excellent track records who happen to hold a minority position. Take whatever you want from that, If they are right, we will not only have an exciting few weeks or months ahead of us, but perhaps even an exciting year, or at least the next 12 months. We shall see. However, one thing they both agree on and disagree on is that the best is still to come. We're going to have that exuberant blow-off top. Will it occur sooner rather than later then? Well, people, we'll see. This is a Cointelegraph article. What is the title of this video clip that they are distributing of an interview with Tom Lee? In addition to his role as a CNBC analyst, he is most known for being the head of the well-known investment firm Fundstrat. In the crypto world, he is highly renowned. I want to draw attention to this, not because I'm thrilled about Ethereum, but because he has a pretty damn solid track record himself and is discussing the direction Ethereum is going. I'm not thrilled about it, but I do hold it. I do this because I am aware of the potential implications for XRP. As a result, Cointelegraph wrote the following, which is optimistic. According to Tom Lee, Ethereum will reach $5,500 within the next few weeks and between $10,000 and $12,000 by the end of the year. All right, Ethereum is in price discovery at that moment, if it is indeed going to reach $5,500.
Okay, last question for you, Tom. I can hear your Slack's going off. You got to get out of here. Really appreciate the time that you spent on the channel. It means a lot. Price targets for end of year for Ethereum and the S&P 500 and your logic for those two.
Yeah, I think Ethereum, in the near term, 5,500 should be happening in the next couple of weeks. But by the end of the year, I think it should be closer to 10 to 12,000 for ETH. But it's because, most of the move in crypto does come in the fourth quarter. So if you're up 35% year to date, well, if you're going to be up 200%, it's going to all happen in the next few months. And for the S&P, if the Fed follows through and begins to cut, which is our expectation, and then we get a drop in mortgage rates and the ISM turning up, and therefore financials really begin to participate, I think that's why we get to 6,800 or so on the S&P. So still a lot of upside. Of course, as you know, September is the month everyone's going to be worried about. So that's a month where you might get a pullback, but you need to be buying that dip.
So the seasonal weakness in September, you would say, would just be another opportunity.
Yes, that's right. And, as you know, every pullback, everyone has been ringing the bell saying it's the top. That has always been a dip buying opportunity since 2022. So I just say keep that in mind that you really should be buying.
It's fantastic to see that it has created a couple of new all-time highs, but it has only lately climbed above. At this point in the market cycle, you would think that would be the case. However, if it continues in that direction, it is the kind of thing that has historically triggered a wild price discovery for the entire crypto asset class, which is akin to the arrival of an alt season. And I'll simply remark that if Ethereum does really reach its top of $12,000 by the end of this year, then XRP would be worth roughly $24 if it were to match Ethereum in market capitalization, which has happened historically. For this reason, I believe it's reasonable to believe that if this occurs, XRP might reach these incredibly high double-digit prices. What's truly awesome about that, Let's imagine that Ethereum reaches $12,000 and XRP only achieves half of that market value, rather than matching it like it did a few cycles ago. That would therefore disappoint a lot of people. That would still be 12 XRP. Therefore, relative to its historical behavior during a highly competitive end-of-cycle period, it might be half off and it would still be at $12. Perhaps some people believe these outrageously high prices are insane, which is why I keep stating them. They aren't insane, in my opinion. They might actually happen, in my opinion. I don't personally forecast prices anymore, although I acknowledge that I have no idea where the price of XRP is headed. I don't believe any of that to be absurd. Much, much higher. Who else is bullish, do you know? This is a reliable cryptocurrency. All he did was write this morning. He seems to believe that prices will rise sooner rather than later, since Bitcoin appears to be aiming for $115,000. Then he had this post this morning as well. He was answering, "Every time I look into the XRP/BTC chart, I feel my XRP bag is not enough." Why would someone write that? If, after viewing the chart, you feel that your luggage is insufficient, it's most likely because you believe that the cost is increasing. Furthermore, Credible Crypto has been saying in recent days that he believes this is going to blow out. He believes that this cycle will see XRP significantly surpass Bitcoin once more. Therefore, optimism remains, as Credible Crypto stated. Don't worry, it's natural to feel this way when you look at the XRP/BTC chart right now. It doesn't matter what happened in the short term, even if the price of XRP has slightly dropped by the time you're reading this. The trend for the longer time frame is still in place. We're still climbing. According to this article from Crypto Insight UK, if XRP can close above $3.14, I believe it will shortly rise to the $3.40 mark. In 2 hours, let's see how the American Open affects the markets. Thus, he remains hopeful. Since this piece was made this morning, there hasn't been much activity in the cryptocurrency space. XRP isn't the only one. The price activity has primarily been sideways. However, it is clear from this post that he believes this might happen at any time. That remains the same. The cryptocurrency market is incredibly primed, especially for XRP. Nothing could be clearer than that. On that point, I see a lot of agreement. There aren't many high-leverage short positions left in XRP, according to this post by chart analyst CW. Stated differently, there aren't many short positions left to prevent the price from rising. I think it sounds wonderful, you know? It's teed up here quite nicely. This is a post by a Galaxy chart analyst. This is only from this morning too. The chart is XRP/BTC. He claims that for more than 6 years, Greenline has served as a resistance on the XRP/BTC combination. However, it appears that the timing is ideal today, as a breakout will place us deep inside the USD pair's price discovery. So isn't it intriguing that he's seeing this as Credible Crypto is saying? Yeah, it looks like we're about to start moving here. How many persons have I highlighted, by the way? How many chart analysts have been making the same argument that I have noticed in the last few days? The fact is that this has been going on for almost 10 years. It is true that some people drag the chart back even further and assert that XRP/BTC has been around for 8 years. This has been consolidating for a long time, and it seems like 5 separate chart analysts whom I follow on a regular basis have recognized this on their own. This stuff has to blow up soon. They're all emphasizing that here. Thus, it's just like last year when the XRPUSD finally broke free after nearly 7 years of consolidation. Then, in November, things really took off. The same idea though, instead this is XRP/BTC. Thus, the chart is different. But what do you think will happen to the USD when XRP significantly outpaces Bitcoin, such as after it crosses over? Examining the value of XRP in relation to a fiat currency is obviously more entertaining. But what does that signify in your opinion? So yes, it will destroy Bitcoin. We haven't even reached an all-time high since 2 cycles ago, you see. You can see where I'm moving my mouse if you're looking at the screen. Take a look at this. Take a look at that. Actually, we haven't had it since the first half of 2017. Therefore, even though January 4th, 2018 was the cycle's all-time high, it wasn't a new all-time high for Bitcoin. Thus, since the first part of 2017, we have not experienced a new all-time high in relation to Bitcoin. Well, anyway, that will never happen again. I will not place that wager. My friends, I believe that at some point we will see it rise, more likely to happen sooner rather than later. This is an article from X-Force Global. At $20, he claims XRP is still the major cycle target. Although there is still a significant barrier for XRP near the $4 level, this does not change the macro's generally bullish picture. So, once more, nothing has changed. I am aware that individuals are battered down and that things are either moving sideways or are lower than when I purchased them. Yes, I understand. The expression of human emotions is a normal part of human nature. Whether the asset class, in this case XRP specifically, will rise or fall is not influenced by your personal feelings. And it's specifically for the rest of this market cycle when it counts. That isn't related to it. And it makes it reasonable to think that, yes, we are going much higher if you just look at the historical pattern. Furthermore, the foundations of XRP are stronger now than they have ever been. Being an XRP holder has never been more advantageous. Of all the people I follow, Mikey Bull Crypto may have the most conservative price target for XRP, as evidenced by this post. Give credit where credit is due, I believe, if he is correct. I don't pretend to know. Again, personally, I'm not a chart man, but if this were true, I would be shocked and let down. He did, however, say that XRP would blow off its top, and then cycle peak at 5 to 8 objectives. In other words, he is an XRP bull and isn't being trolley. His objective is simply extremely conservative. People, I would be surprised because before this cycle, XRP's last all-time high was $3.35 on January 4th, 2018. If he turns out to be right, you're talking about getting someplace around, maybe almost doubling it or something. Thus, we successfully consolidated for almost 10 years or 2 market cycles, all in an effort to double its previous all-time high. I would be surprised by that. What caused it? For instance, why would it perform so badly in comparison to Ethereum? Given how much money has been put in XRP thus far, why would Bitcoin at lower price points yield a larger return on investment than XRP? That's it. To tell the truth, that's difficult to believe. Again, I'll give credit where credit is due if he's correct. Simply put, until there is a black swan occurrence, I'm not very confident in these lower price forecasts. Well then, everything is off the table if that occurs. However, I find it difficult to accept that XRP would be among the worst performers going forward if there is no black swan event. The market simply proceeds as usual, there is excitement, and everything goes as planned. Thus, I don't think it's true. I don't think I believe that. I'm highly doubtful about that, but I'm not sure what will happen.